could you do me a massive favour and click follow or subscribe button? It helps the podcast out so much.
Cressida, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
How was your journey in? Did you say you're originally from London?
No, I grew up in Hampshire and then I lived in London for about 20 years and then I moved back out to Hampshire again when I had my son.
Oh, you probably know it better than me then. Like, I've been here about 7 years now.
Okay.
But anyone who has not come across kind of yourself and kind of Free From Food Awards, would you like to do a bit of introduction to yourself?
I'm the CEO of the Free From Food Awards. I've been in this position for about the last 3 years. And before that, I worked since 2008 for the Free From Food Awards as a sort of administrator and then sort of manager. And I've worked my way through and up. And I'm now the head honcho there.
Amazing. If we go back to kind of the very, very kind of beginning of your story, whereabouts was you brought up?
So I grew up in Hampshire. My dad was a teacher at a boarding school. So my siblings and I all went to the boarding school. And we lived in the school grounds. So it was a very nice sort of sunny upbringing. Is
this through your secondary school, the whole secondary
It was
school?
the whole way through from when I was born all the way through until the end of school.
Did you split up the boys and girls or was it mixed?
Yeah, mixed boarding school,
really?
Yeah, it was good fun. It was a pretty charmed upbringing, so I was very lucky.
Yeah. Whereabouts was that? Was that outside of Hampshire?
It was in Hampshire, in a little village.
Did you know, like when you was young, kind of what you wanted to do?
No, not a clue. And I think I still don't really. There's a part of me that wants to kind of be, I don't know, a gardener or I don't know, something else. But I love, I love whatever I've done in life. I've really enjoyed it. So I feel very lucky, but I don't really know what I want to do.
Do you gardening on the side now then?
Yeah.
So work you're doing now, did you always have a passion for kind of change or did that come a bit later on?
I think I've always enjoyed communicating. So one of my favourite jobs has been a waitress or bar work, or where you get to talk to people and meet people. I just find it fascinating. I find communication incredibly interesting. The way that you can miscommunicate, the way that when you make a connection with someone, it's incredibly moving. I think that's something that's always sort of inspired me to do the jobs that I've sort of fallen into or chosen to do. The job I had before working for the Free From Food Awards was in conflict resolution, peace and conflict resolution. And that was an amazing experience. I mean, again, I was administrative assistant, but we did courses on non-violent conflict and things like that. And
was there any key learnings from that in regards to when someone could be quite agitated or angry, how you kind of get peace and calm in that situation?
I can't. One thing I remember specifically was the idea that it's not on us to impose our values on other people, I think. And if you come from sort of an underneath curiosity about what their situation is, then you'll always learn something that sort of like dissipates the anger and dissipates the aggression. I mean, obviously it doesn't always work, and I'm not talking about actual sort of hostile situations, but just if there's a conflict, there's often a place of defense that the other person is standing in or acting from. And if I think listening is obviously key. If you listen to someone long enough, you generally start to understand their story. And if you understand their story, you understand so much more about
resonate more with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have you read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People?
No, I know, but I haven't read it. No.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting about like conflict and like. I think one time he had this like a ballroom and they put the rent up and stuff, and it was like too expensive. And I think one thing is like he always took interest in that person and what was going on around them, or find out what is they pride themselves on. And it's interesting if you can kind of show interest. It's amazing how like people can then open up and kind of express themselves. But I always love that book kind of thing. Like.
I think that's a really key point, and it was something that I was taught very recently. I did some mentoring with someone who was just really brilliant, and she said, and I've always had a problem going to shows because at the awards we are selling our awards, but we've never wanted anyone to enter because they feel like they should enter. It's always entering because you want to take part in a competition, which is going to be fun and interesting.
Part of the community as well. Like it's incredible, like trying to get like-minded people like yourself who understand you and been through the same experiences, and a great way to kind of connect with new people. Yeah,
definitely. And one of the key things that this person said to me was, if you go in and tell people that you are running a business, they'll switch off. Or you go in and you ask people what their story is. You go in and you say, what do you do? What do you want? What are you looking for? What's your dream? And the first time I went to a trade show with this attitude of asking people questions, I had the best time, so much better than coming from that place of, but I want to tell you this, and I want to, tell you about my awards, and I want to tell you why I'm great. And actually going, so what makes you tick? Why are you, why are you...
And people resonate with you more as well, for you understand why someone is the way they is, or what is their why.
Yeah.
It's much more interesting than being like, well, I've got this product, which is great, but I want to understand like you as a person kind of thing.
Yeah. And all of that for me explains why people are shy, because they're afraid, there's a defensiveness and a fear and things, and if you can kind of break through that in yourself and in other people, then you can communicate in a much more positive way. What's
your link to allergies then? Was it through the kind of the Free From Food Awards?
Yeah, well, I was working for this conflict resolution organisation, and then I gave birth to my son, and I had maternity leave, and I was working in Old Street, and I was living in Camden. And the best piece of advice my mother-in-law had was, if you don't have a career path that you need, so you don't have to go back to Old Street and commute for, an hour and a half every day, get a job nearby where you live so that you can leave your kid with a childminder and then come back and it's a 5-minute walk. So I went to the Ham and High and I found an advert that sounded very suspicious. It said looking for a subscriptions manager for a pamphlet. So I had all these kind of ideas in my head of what it might be, but it was, I was paying a decent wage, so I went along, and I didn't look back. It turned out to be Foods Matter, which is a magazine about allergies, food allergies specifically. What
year did that start? Because I only known about it through yourself. This is like a couple of years ago.
Okay.
When I got invited on someone else's podcast. I think it was the Algae Hour.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And that's how I got introduced to yourself for the first time at that event.
Yeah.
They've been going for quite a long time then.
So Michelle, who founded the awards, first of all, when she had her son in 1980, I think, I can't remember when he was born, something like that. A long time ago, he was intolerant, I think, to milk products, and so she, being the woman she is, full of energy and full of, keenness, she started off this letter which was to send out to doctors, because there's no knowledge and awareness really of food allergies and intolerance within the medical community in terms of GPs and things at that time. So she wrote this sort of weekly or monthly newsletter to doctors, and then that morphed into a food magazine for consumers. And in the centre of the food magazine, we used to carry out these food tastings. So when I arrived in 2008, they were still doing the magazine. And so every month we would go out and we'd buy all the gluten-free biscuits or whatever we could find. And then we'd all eat them and we'd score them out of whatever, and we'd write the ingredients and everything. Then we'd publish that in the centre of the magazine. Amazing. And that was how the Food Awards started, from this sort of spread in the centre of the magazine. And someone said, you need to create an awards, and you need to charge people, and you need to, set it up. So,
you mentioned then obviously you was going out and trying to find these gluten kind of free biscuits. I imagine, was that quite difficult at the time? Was there many kind of products like that?
No, not really. And I can't even remember how we did it, but the key criteria was always they had to be nationwide. They had to be available nationwide, because the magazine was going out to people all across the country. So it couldn't be just like a boutique in Hampstead that was making gluten-free and nut-free and dairy-free bread or whatever it was. So it was generally, the Tesco free from custard creams or that kind of thing. So if we could find them, then we figured other people could find them. Yeah, which was quite important, obviously.
We've seen a massive shift then, I can imagine. With the
oh my God.
From,
huge.
It must be crazy, from where you started.
Huge. So I remember one of the first tastings that we did, they had the bread in a tin, and you there was a sort of psh, when you open the tin, and this sort of white, so it was bright white, this lump kind of slid out, and it was bread.
Oh.
And it's like, what?
I seen someone post something the other day on TikTok where gluten bread was like really, really small.
Yeah. It still is a lot. It's smaller. Yeah, okay. It's definitely getting better, but it's still smaller than a normal, lovely fluffy loaf. But massive changes and massive innovation. And it's not perfect, but it's obviously a hell of a lot better than it ever has been.
Yeah. So you was at the Food Matters Was you there for until it closed down, the magazine?
So we basically closed that in 2010. After.
Why was that? Was it just?
Well, it was just becoming more and more expensive. Our magazine advertising was going down, and the website, where the web era was on the rise. And actually, it was time for it to stop.
Are they still doing the events then? Food Matters.
This is food. So there's a lot of Food Matter things, but this is Food Matters was the magazine that Michelle set up.
Yeah.
Food Matters Live is a separate organisation that I was doing food panels for, but that was a job that I had on the side.
So that was different.
Yeah, that was
the thing. I wasn't too sure if it was like the same.
No,
thing,
Well, Food Matters Live is obviously a massive event from sort of from fork to mouth, and field to fork, or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah.
Whereas Food Matters was specifically about food allergies, food intolerances, celiac disease.
So was your role then trying to obviously go out, obviously find the products to kind of test it? Would you do that in Michelle's house?
Yeah, and we used to have some really fun times. Like, if we were testing pastas, we'd have a massive dinner and like invite. She had a lot of contacts, obviously, in the food industry, so we'd invite people with allergies, people who were creating foods, and it was a as you know, it's a very warm and small community, the Free From community. It's not that small anymore, but at the time it was quite small. So there are a lot of people who are really willing to contribute and help in any way they could. So it was always a really good-natured event. Yeah,
because I've seen like some blog posts from like 10 years ago, and that is pictures of everyone getting together, and they had Steve Walpole on the podcast this week actually, and he was saying that he went along to like the judging sessions, and
he's brilliant. He's been amazing. I mean, he's brilliantly vocal, and we're actually doing a thing with him at the IFE in March, which is going to be really exciting. But he's always been a real supporter. So a lot of the people, Alexa, Food Allergy Hour, and Natalie, and lots of really fantastic people who have come along and helped us out over the years, because you can't judge a food without having people who either know about food, or know about allergies, or know about what it's like to buy food for their kids, or So
did you feel like you fell on your feet then with that first job? It kind of opened up doors in regards to where you wanted to be.
Do you mean the conflict resolution job, or the
administration?
I mean, I really like filing things. I was discussing waitressing the other day with a friend of mine who really hated it, and I said I really liked it because you felt like you're filing the food into people's mouths. You're like, you want a burger and a Coke, fine, great, I'll get you a burger and a Coke, and you can sort people out, and you can sort of help them. And I think I just really like that. I really like account bookkeeping. I love sort of getting the numbers right, and ticking boxes and all sorts of things. So I think I'm a bit boring and straight like that. I love that. So when you can make administration work, it's very satisfying. So running things like or supporting magazines or awards, you've got to do it right. And if you can do it right from the bottom, from the foundation, then you're going to create something which is.
It sounds like you've got kind of the best of both worlds in regards to obviously you mentioned about the conflict. Is it the conflict?
Yeah, conflict resolution.
Resolution, and you were saying obviously like the kind of psychology and the meeting people and that kind of connection. So it's kind of. Imagine the same again in the community, like. Yeah,
well, as you know, it's an emotional space. Food and allergies. I get that. I don't have food allergies myself. I have intolerance to dairy and possibly to gluten, but I get the emotionality around all of it. I guess it's nice being able to understand where people are coming from. A lot of food companies and drink companies are set up by people with food allergies and intolerances themselves. So, if I can understand that emotionality around it, then I can best support them.
Yeah. Do you feel like with the free from food sometimes, and I've spoke to quite a few business owners, like it's a bit more expensive with the manufacturing kind of costs and that side of it. Do you feel like it's potentially getting cheaper in some ways? Or is that a tricky one to...
That is a tricky one to answer. Yeah. I mean, it's... Creative Nature obviously talk a bit about why the food has to be expensive. If you're doing the right tests and having the right risk management in place, it is more expensive. But the end of it is a product that is going to be safe for whoever needs to eat it. I hesitate to say that it's expensive. I mean, it is expensive. I get it. It is expensive. And when people blog about the fact that they're paying 7 times more for a loaf than someone who doesn't have to get a gluten-free loaf, then that is really painful. but at least it's there. It's a really difficult question to answer. And nowadays,
I had Eureka on the podcast, and he was saying obviously like it's more expensive, the ice cream, because of like the manufacturing. Obviously they got to go through all these hoops to make sure obviously the machines are obviously not have that kind of cross contamination.
Well, I mean, you know, as someone with, I mean, for me, if I see something that says may contain milk, I don't give it second thoughts. It's for me, that's fine. It's not a problem. I'm not gonna have an allergic reaction. But for someone who does and who will and who might, that's massive. So if you can have the confidence that food is safe. Yeah. I don't know. How do you feel about paying more for food that is gonna is gonna be? So
my allergies are just obviously peanuts and tree nuts, like essentially all nuts. Really, I avoid. In regards to like free from, it would be more like chocolate, you know, like normal.
Yeah.
Obviously, I never eat anything what says may contain.
Yeah.
And I know these like free from brands, but for me, it's more kind of like chocolate or sweets. I wouldn't.
Okay.
That's it really. I don't know. So I don't necessarily, when I do my food shop, and not a lot. They're
not staple items, are they? So So you're not. Maybe it's a treat item which you would anyway. It's more of a treat.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going out my way each food shop and it's a lot more expensive because. Yeah. But I mean, I can imagine if you're allergic to dairy, then it could be a lot more kind of difficult for them kind of people.
I think one of the things, people have such different approaches. You know, I know families who have allergies and they cook from scratch, and that's just the way they've always done it. So they don't have they're not going to go out and buy a ready-made something or other, which is obviously going to be more expensive than making something at home. So there are different approaches, but I mean, you can't get away from the fact that gluten-free bread and gluten-free pasta is going to be more expensive. Yeah. And then especially at the moment with food prices going up anyway, I mean, it must be an absolute nightmare. Yeah. And kids, you know, kids just want to be fed. If you've got a kid who's got an allergy, they just want to eat that thing that they need to eat. And it's just it's a painful situation, I think. I mean, hopefully it'll get better, but who knows? Yeah,
because I know I've like spoke to business about obviously the manufacturing and like obviously just making sure that factory are super clear. There's no kind of cross contamination, and there's a lot of this like this may contain just putting on products just for the safeguarding themselves, really, which is really frustrating at times. Like.
So that, I mean, that's definitely an ongoing battle, and I mean the top 14 allergens, UK listed top 14 allergens were created when we were in the EU by the EU, so they're very Europe centric, so they don't fit UK. What's the word? Demographic.
Okay.
You know, so I think I probably will get this wrong, but we don't have a lot of people who are allergic to some of the things like maybe mustard or celery, but we have a lot of people who are allergic to milk and to nuts, and no one's allergic to oats, even though an oat is labelled as an allergen. Not no one, obviously there are people who are allergic to oats. But we know there's a rising allergic situation with pea and chickpea, which you obviously must have heard about because people are talking about it all the time. And so, you know, now we've got autonomy. Why don't we recreate those top 14 allergens and you know, and change them a bit? And so, you know, carry out some sort of research and find out what the British population is allergic to, and then make those the ones that everyone has to label. And
I was going to say, obviously you've been in the free from world for a long time now. Have you seen the increase of kids now having allergies in comparison to when you started?
Yes, through hearsay. So my son is 15, and I was telling him I was going to come and do a podcast with you, really? And he was like, I said, well, you know, when you talk about, because they, you know, my mum's like, allergic to dairy. Well, no, she doesn't say allergic, because, you know, I wouldn't never say it. But no, my son doesn't have allergies. But you know, there's people who roll their eyes when you say that you don't want to eat milk because it doesn't make you feel well, you know. And he was saying, but if you're actually allergic to something, then that, you know, that's a serious condition, and actually, well, you're just intolerant to milk or whatever, and it's like, that's good, you know. I'm glad he has that about me, but you know, and he's got friends who've got a nut allergy or there are other things like that, and he's like, I mean, you know, she's got a nut allergy, it's fine, we just, you know, take care of it or whatever. And so I don't know.
There's a more understanding now with kids, like, about allergies. I know, because it's constantly in the news now, isn't it, with obviously what happened to Natasha. I think before that I used to not really come across too many articles, and I think then with Natasha's Law and the incredible work they've done, it's always been at the forefront, which is amazing to kind of see what they've done. But I think sometimes having that constant reminder, because sometimes it can give people a bit more anxiety, and but I think it's great, because I think as generally as the general public are more aware now about allergies in comparison to like a few years ago. Because I used to go out my way and research like allergies in the news, but it would give me, and I stopped doing that because it's giving me anxiety and stuff. And you feel like people constantly having fatal anaphylaxis, but after having like doctors on the podcast, it's actually not that common. But I think people feel like it's common because of social media and reading a lot of it.
I mean, it's a balance, isn't it? I mean, I like the fact that my son feels confident, you know, that a friend of his has got a nut allergy, and it's not a massive deal, but at the same time it obviously is, it could be a big deal. So it's that kind of, it's the balance of power and knowledge, isn't it? And like you say, you don't want to, I mean, it's like reading a medical dictionary and you come away thinking you've got every single illness under the sun, and it's like, oh no. So I
just don't Google it.
So yes, and I think, I mean, you still come across people who sort of sniff when, you know, school parents. I know that there are some people who sort of don't believe in allergies and that kind of thing, and I'm like, well, I mean, okay, fine.
They just don't understand this.
Or you know, the whole issue about the sort of overprotective parent. I mean, we all know people who are overprotective of their kids, and I get that. That's, you know, that's a thing. But when someone is accused of being overprotective because they're like, you know, here's my daughter and she's allergic to milk and eggs, and you're like, oh, is she? And you're like, no, she is. So you know, if you're going to have her over for a play date, actually, you're not going to have her over for a play date. So I think there's a bigger conversation around it. I mean, I do feel very lucky to be alive now, because there are conversations about things that there weren't 50 years ago, and I think
it's mad, isn't it? How the world has changed, even like mental health and like guys.
Oh my God, Well, menopause, you know, I'm of that age, and it's like, I feel, how fortunate am I that I can have these conversations and go talking about mental health, you know, hormonal disruption and all that kind of thing. And we are really lucky. But I think, you know, it's thanks to people like you who talk and stand up and say, I've got an allergy, this is what life is like, it's okay, but I have to take care, you know. And it's an amazing thing to have people like you who will talk about it and who make it okay. And also being able to say it's not okay now, actually, it's really not okay. And I don't know, there's a freedom in that, and I think there must be a lot of people who have a gratitude for you and all that you've done, and that, you know, all the other ones who are doing the same sort of thing. But you're unusual because you're a young man, and that's, you know, you must have had that a lot from people.
Yeah, I had it. I think there's a blog post once, I think someone written about, obviously there wasn't many male kind of allergy advocates, and I wrote a few lines for that. But yeah, it's mad. There's actually a new guy. I seen a guy on my Instagram. I was like, oh, there's another male in the allergy community, and I need to shout out about him. I'll share him. He's just started his page. I remember I think I was in the gym when I saw it, so I kind of I saved it, being like, I'll come back to it and I'll share it. But there's only myself, and I think, is it Zach as well?
Zach, brilliant.
With the allergy kit, and he's doing incredible work there. So it's great to kind of see more male advocates. I mean, when I started, there was a guy in the US, but I don't really, I've not seen him recently or him share anything and stuff. But it's interesting, because when I started as well, there wasn't really many allergy bloggers. There's very few of us anyway, and it's mad to see there's more and more now. Like each year it seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and it's great to see kind of new faces. And I think for me it's like the community aspect as well. Like I've got like a group of, we're all like similar ages, and friends, and we've all got allergies, and we talk about it. And, you know what I mean? We don't take our allergies seriously, but then like we share like allergy-free recipes at our restaurants.
Nice. Well, when I first came across you'd I don't know, I think you just published the magazine.
2015,
And that was, to me, I was like, that sort of blew part of my mind, because I still have the image of the girl legs, with an EpiPen. I was just like, that's genius, because it demedicalized the whole thing, and it made it sexy and trendy and great, and all those words that are really middle-aged to use. But, you know, it just made it really accessible and normal, and I was just like, that's brilliant. And also you had yellow and black, which is obviously our logo colours, so I was like, you know, ding. Which I really like,
it's okay, it's great. I think it's only yours who've took them colours, so we've owned them now anyway. Like, we've not come back, kind of thing. But Yeah, no, it is mad, really, how the journey kind of started from that, really.
Yeah.
But, in regards to kind of the Free From Food Awards, could you explain it to maybe someone who's maybe never come across it before?
So the Free From Food Awards, which started in 2008, is to celebrate quality and safe free from food and drink. And the central sort of tenet of our awards is the free from consumer. So when we use the word free from, we mean someone who needs to avoid one or more of the top 14 allergens. And recently, in the last couple of years, we've also brought pea and chickpea into that because of the rising need to...
With the rise, is that... Sorry, I actually hadn't seen it on my feed.
Okay.
Is this recently over the last year?
It's a few. There are a couple of... So Alexa Allergy Hour... Food Allergy UK and My Allergy Boy. She also talks about it on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
And yeah, there is a rise in it, and it's something that we're sort of, again, it's something that we can sort of as a, we're not a body, but as a company, as an organization, we can share that it is becoming more of a problem. So so it's not obviously a top 14 allergen, but we include it in a couple of our categories as something that we want to draw attention to. So free from for us is anyone who enters the awards has to make a product that is free from at least one of the top 14 allergens. And it doesn't have to be a specific free from product. So it could just be something that somebody makes, which just happens to be absolutely gluten-free or nut-free or milk-free or whatever it is. Yeah. So the idea is that you as a company enter your nut-free, gluten-free bread into our awards, and it doesn't matter whether you're a supplier to one of the big retailers or if you're just making it in Dan Kelly's kitchen or whatever it is. You enter your product, you send in samples. We have a panel of judges. Well, we have a huge pool of judges, and I hope one day you'll come and join us as a judge.
Because I remember you reached out, and I was like, I think at the time my anxiety was really bad, but I mean, we can talk after the podcast.
Okay,
it's something like it's been on the agenda, and it's been too long. Like, you know what I mean? It'd be great to kind of get involved and find out what category can kind of help out on. But,
brilliant. Let's definitely talk about that.
I think when you reached out, it was just a really bit of a bad phase. Sorry,
total. No, total. I totally understand that. And so we have a panel of judges, and the products are all judged blind, so nobody knows who's made them. So you get, from the tiniest kitchen along to the most massive brand, all sitting in a they don't sit in a line, but we bring them out. They get maybe 5 minutes in front of a panel of judges. The judges write about them, talk about them, not knowing who's made them, and they grade them or score them. And then they decide who's won all the medals, and then at the end they find out who's made them. And there's often a lot of sort of gasps of surprise. And and what entrants love about it is the fact that they can get a gold in a category that Tesco gets a bronze in, or something like that. Or sorry Tesco, your product's fantastic. But so and that's an amazing
accolade. Really small startup.
Tiny.
It could be their first product, and it's incredible.
And the real benefit of our awards is when I say the real benefit, medals are obviously a benefit, but the taking part is really important. Yeah. And they get at the end of the awards, after everything's finished, after the presentations happened, they get a feedback pack, and they get feedback on their product, on the category it entered, and on the free from sector as a sort of wider overview. So they get a lot of really valuable insights.
I didn't know that. So
which is worth
brands
a lot of money.
Then get feedback on their product, of what it is people liked or what it is.
Yeah, and how they could improve, or any idea. All the judges' chat is captured and sort of and edited into this feedback pack. So it's a really good.
That's incredible. Yeah. I was completely unaware about that. So that must be really insightful for brands as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get a lot of brands entering year after year because they enjoy the feedback and they find it really useful, or they value the way that we run them, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it started with Michelle.
Yes.
How many years ago was this? Is this?
So this is what now? It's in its 16th year.
Oh wow!
But so this year we changed the calendar. So we always used to open it in September, and so the awards that were open in September would be labelled the year after. So the awards now are 2023 awards, but they would have opened in 2022. So it was always a bit confusing. So even though it looks like it's only been going for 15 years, it's in its 16th year.
Yeah.
So it's a moment to talk to you about a brand called Good. It's gluten-free, and it's just come available in Asda. It's a brand new brand. It's free from peanuts, tree nuts, milk, egg, and sesame. And they do kind of meal kits and wraps. So they do like fajita kits, so they do hoisin. They also do katsu curry, which I've never had before. So yeah, it's great to try out different cuisines. When you've got lots of different allergies, it can be really difficult. And a lot of like supermarket brands now have that kind of make and take warning, which is really difficult for my allergies. So yeah, it's great as I've Good, It's Gluten-Free sponsoring the podcast. If you want to find out more about them, I'll leave a link in the description below. They're also available to buy at Asda as well. Let's jump straight back to the podcast.
It started with Michelle.
Yeah.
After the kind of the food.
Yeah. Well, actually, we were sitting in a coffee shop up the road for one of our morning coffee breaks, and we had a friend there who runs a nut-free chocolate company called D&D Chocolates. Okay. I don't know if you're very small. Yeah. And he said, you know, these tastings you do are great, but you need to be running awards. That would be a brilliant thing to do. So it was really his idea, but then we took it and did it. So yeah.
That's what it always starts with a coffee. I went for a coffee the other day with a brand, which is not out yet, so I don't know if I can. Oh, I can say it. The product isn't launched yet, but it's Grow with Iris. So Amy, the founder.
Yeah.
And Brilliant. We went for a coffee, and she was talking about the products and stuff, and it was really really interesting. But then she gave me stuff that I never thought about with the podcast and stuff. So yeah, it's great to kind of connect with these people in the community. Like.
Yeah, there's nothing like face to face.
So judging then, like during the lockdown, obviously I know it affected everyone, and obviously not being able to kind of meet up in person. How did that kind of affect the judging? Was that all done over Zoom, or is it? How did that work? So the
lockdown happened just as we were about to do our presentation party. So we have these amazing presentation evenings where everyone gets together, and I don't know if you've been along to one, but maybe not. But they're always really.
To the online one.
Okay, So basically, I think what was it? Lockdown was like the 23rd of March or something.
Yeah.
And so we basically we ran a Zoom party that year, and it was hilarious because none of us really knew how to do it, and I ended up holding up my laptop in front of a camera screen for it, and it was just sort of ridiculous, but it was really good fun.
The one I saw was like really jazzy. It had all these animations.
Oh yeah. Well, then we got a bit better.
Well produced.
Yeah. But yeah, the lockdown. So we used to have judging sessions, so there'd be about maybe 8 to 10 judges in a room, and everyone would pile in. It'd be fantastic, and we would just have to take care of allergens and people with allergies in the room, but other than that there were no kind of germ issues. And then suddenly pandemic, so in 2021 we delayed all of our judging sessions, and we shrank the number of judges, and we had all the PPE and the screens, and we were constantly wiping things down, which was great because we'd always been constantly wiping things down anyway, so it was sort of fine. So we delayed the judging sessions because people couldn't travel. We couldn't do a lot of them online because you can't. We don't have the facility to send out frozen produce to individual judges, so we just had to wait until people felt confident. The thing we had on our side was that companies were allowed to encourage travel for business if they could, and it's a business that we ran, so it was never that we weren't allowed to, but we just had to take people's safety into consideration. So a lot of judges said, look, this isn't for me, I don't want to risk it, I'm not going to come. A lot of judges said, actually, this is fine, I've got a mask, I'm all right, I'll do it. So we did manage to do it in 2021, and then by 2022 I think it was over. So we were still taking care, but what we found was that by shrinking the number of judges, we actually got far better focused feedback. So we've kept the number of judges to a far smaller group, because if you've got 8 to 10 people in a room and they all vaguely know each other or might have heard of each other, or if it's a stranger, they were like, oh, so what do you do, where do you come from? So actually we find that we're much more selective about our judges now.
How many judges have you got at the minute? Because I saw on your website there's quite a long list.
We've got about a pool of probably about 200.
Oh, wow.
Some come and go, and some are sort of constants. We try to have.
Is Natalie still doing it?
Natalie's still doing it. Yeah. We try to have so we try to have someone with food allergy on each panel. Some of the food allergies, a food developer or producer, and possibly another who knows about the food sector. I mean, they're all food related people. Or someone who's interested. So Zach Marks is coming along. Well, I hope he is. I've invited him, and he's quite keen to. So that'd be really nice to have him along. He's
got a nut allergy as well. Is it just nuts?
He's got nuts, and I can't remember. He did email me yesterday. I've forgotten what he had. But yeah, and then last year we had the new head of the anaphylaxis campaign, Simon, which was interesting. So we like to have a lot of people, and if people email, and we do get a lot of inquiries
people as well,
yeah,
like people you
good.
might not be aware of, kind of thing. Because obviously, my opportunity was usually kind of through the podcast or the kind of the Allergy Free From show. So yeah, it must be a good way to kind of connect with different people in the industry. Yeah,
definitely.
Have you seen more brands then recently specialising for kind of more specific allergies, or is it more just as a whole, would you say?
That's an interesting question. The smaller brands focus on one allergen a lot of the time, or it really depends on what their motivation is. So with the bigger companies, nut-free chocolate is obviously a really difficult one. But milk-free chocolate seems to be a fairly easy one to manufacture. It depends really on who they are and what they're. So we get a lot of people who've got children with multiple allergies, and they make products that are free from all of those allergens.
Yeah.
So they're kind of, that's great, because then you've got products to fit all sorts of people. But I'm not sure if there's definitely been a rise recently of free from multiple allergens.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more egg, milk, soy, nut-free things around.
Have you seen more products aimed at kids, would you say? Yeah,
definitely. Again, I thought that there was a restriction on advertising to children, but I don't know where I've got that from, because that obviously can't be. But I thought someone said that when you're making a food, you can't stick a funny cartoon character on it because of some advertising restriction. But don't you work in advertising?
I used to, when I started and when I worked in advertising, but then the hours are crazy.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's also, it depends what your what your angle is, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know many grown-ups that would swoon at a chicken nugget, but so that's obviously a kid's product. But I'm not really sure. I don't know if I can answer that question very well.
Yeah. What about? I've got to ask earlier about the amount of entries. Has it gone up like crazy over the last couple of years? The amount of kind of brands reaching out to the Free From Food Awards. I think it would have been that had we not had the pandemic, and then Brexit, and then the other way around, Brexit, then the pandemic, and then this issue with food supplies and things. So we are still we were increasing on entries about 8% a year on year, which was brilliant. It has taken, it's sort of topped off a bit at the moment. But I mean, that's to be expected. People's budget lines or bottom lines are a bit. How many people are now working with the Free From Food Awards? Is it quite a few of you?
So there are two full-time, and then there's a couple of part-time people. So we did expand a bit, and then we shrank again.
Yeah.
As I think a lot.
The pandemic that kind of changed for everyone. Kind of thing. What's your role now, being the kind of CEO, and obviously you work yourself up the company over the last years? Like how's that kind of changed, and what do you do now?
So the Free From Food Awards was set up basically with we had no overheads for many years. So we needed to grow up, really. We needed to become a proper company that did all the things that companies do and set all those foundations in place. So I was hoping that over the last 4 years or so we would grow, and I would be able to take on an administrative assistant to do the things that I used to do, like handling entries. But because of the issues with everybody's bottom lines and turnovers and things, we haven't been able to do that. So my role is not only overseeing the things at the top, but it's also I still receive all the entries, and along with Nikki, who I work with, we still process things. So we do everything really between us. So Nikki's the brand and marketing director, and she's been with us pretty much from the last 5 years. Working on various things, so she overhauled our brand and marketing.
Would you say it feels a bit like a family? Does it feel quite close knit?
Yeah,
I get the vibe. I don't know, like it. Yeah, everyone's been there quite a long time. Like.
Yeah, well, everyone. So Michelle. Everyone used to think that Michelle was my mum.
Oh, really?
So so that was quite funny.
Yeah.
She's not my mum, but
just to clarify.
But it's very close knit, and there is there are friendships and things that you. Well, it's like any workplace, isn't it? Really, but I think the people who've come and worked there have had allergies or intolerance or celiac disease, and so everyone brings their own understanding. Everyone contributes to that. So, so yeah, it does feel like a warm place to work.
How do you guys go about then like promoting it so more brands kind of become aware? Is it through social media? Do you do like Facebook ads? Do you promote it, or is it more kind of organic, word of mouth?
It's more organic.
Yeah,
so we've tried a few little ads. I think we did an Instagram ad and a Facebook ad last year, and it was fine. But we also found we got a lot of trolling. So we were like, actually, don't want to. But,
people just like not understanding allergies.
Yeah, just being a bit rude about whatever, and we're like, actually, don't really need that because yes, you can. A criticism is great. Don't get me wrong, but there's unnecessary attacks are just a bit boring. So I do find that quite hard to deal with. So I was like, actually, no thanks. Let's just stay organic.
It's funny because you can get all these nice comments, and all it can take is like one comment, and like you like freak out. You're like, what? Like people don't like me, kind of thing. Like,
I mean that's just human nature.
I've had it, from time to time. But
God,
it's not too often, to be honest. And you just kind of ignore it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I really wanted to ask, obviously, what does it mean for the businesses if they get this gold or the Free From Food Award? What can the businesses do with that?
Well, I mean, getting a medal for a product obviously is assurance that you make a great product. Yeah. So we've had feedback from a lot of our entrants saying, it really helped with a launch into a retailer or a launch overseas, or I can't remember which company it was, but somebody said it opens doors. Having that logo really opens the doors, and so you can take your product more far and wide, and it gives them the confidence to go, okay, I've got a gold, I've got gold, or I've got bronze.
You can use that sticker, obviously, for your packaging. So
you can use it everywhere, and our logo is free to use. The only requirement is that if you change the recipe, you can't use it anymore because it's a different product, so it's not the product that won the medal. But you can change the packaging. You can take it everywhere. But I
was going to say, is this year extra special with obviously doing the Free From Food Awards in person?
It's going to be amazing.
Whereabouts are you doing it this year?
Well, we're not entirely sure yet, but it's going to still be in London. We'd like one day, we did have plans to take it up to the centre of England somewhere so that everyone could, because everything happens in London and people who live up north get a bit bored of that. But that is not going to happen this year. So we're going to have a party, and it is going to be big, and it's going to be really exciting. I'm going to bring in some new things. I can't tell you about yet, but it's going to be good. So we're really hoping that a lot of people will come and feel the vibe.
How many people usually attend these kind of events?
So we at the height of it, we had about 300 guests, and they are from all over the free from sector and the food industry. So it was always a really good get together. And we supply a free from menu with canopies, and we have a buffet of winners. So we will be slightly tweaking that this year, but we'll still have free from food on the menu and free from drinks. So
it must be quite hard trying to cater for everyone when it's a Free From Food Awards.
Yeah, I can't remember what there were. I think there were 8 allergens that we instructed the chefs to completely avoid when we used to do the parties, and I can't remember. I think there were, so we didn't worry too much about celery, but we worried a lot about nuts or milk or whatever.
You got new categories. I know during the lockdown, did you introduce the Christmas?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So the Christmas Awards is a totally separate award, and we'd been wanting to do it for ages. And finally we were like, it just gave us the perfect excuse because we had to delay. So we thought, right, let's do it. And it's been really successful, and I think it's really brilliant. It's a great award, and we've got a lovely little logo with holly berries on it. So
can't go wrong with that.
Can't go wrong.
Do you think you'll introduce more categories as the years potentially over the next year or two?
Nut-free is an interesting one. So we had nut-free right from the beginning, right from 2008, and around about 2014 we just weren't getting any entries, and you have to have a certain amount of entries to sustain the category, obviously. So we shut it down for about 4 years. We didn't have one, and then about 5 years ago, or 3 years, or something quite recently, people were like, actually, no, we've got nut-free produce now, we want to enter it. So we now have a nut and peanut-free category.
Amazing.
So it does ebb and flow. Things do change with regards to what people want, what the consumer wants, or what the manufacturer wants to shout about. This year we've introduced international recognition category, because our main awards is just for produce that is available in the UK. So this year we've opened it up to international brands who want to get into the UK. So the process is similar for them. So they enter their products, and the feedback they get will be about, how their product would fit into the UK free-from sector.
Yeah.
The positives, the constructive criticism, all that sort of stuff. So that's a really exciting one.
What opportunities would you say in the free-from sector? Is it like a market where you feel like there's not enough products in that sector?
Within the free-from sector, there's obviously so one of the big things that's come out of the Christmas Awards is that it's very difficult to get a mince pie which is gluten-free and milk-free and nut-free.
Yeah.
So some people make gluten-free and milk-free ones, and some people make gluten-free and nut-free ones. But so there's little things like,
oh really? Yours are the make and saying warning. So maybe this Christmas I'll have to dig it out.
I can't remember which. There's a retailer that makes a nut-free mince pie, and everyone's like, "Woo, this is so exciting!" Except for the people who are milk, they can't eat it. They have milk allergies. So there's little kind of like I went to one of the international fairs recently, and there's a licorice company, and they were saying that they'd been told that no one in England or no one in Britain eats licorice, and which is sort of weird, sort of national cultural myth. And they came over and they had they make gluten-free and vegan licorice.
Yeah.
They came over and they said they had a massively warm reception over here. So that's the kind of thing. It's like, actually, it's rubbish,
Yeah. And what would you say the plan is for the kind of free-from food awards? You have like grand plans you would want to share with the audience over the next couple of years?
We want to continue doing what we do, just better and better and better. We want to find new ways to support manufacturers and consumers. So we've always got in our sites supplying smaller manufacturers with answers to questions, with resources that they can't find anywhere. So when you manufacture foods, you have a local trading standards sort of hovering over you, making sure you're doing it all right, and free from and the questions that people have about how to manufacture free from food, they can't always get the answers they need. So one of our aims is to be a really strong resource, not that we can certificate anything, but just so we can point people in the right direction. So really sort of a hub of awareness, a hub of knowledge would be really good. Yeah. We've just launched a little consumer resources section on our website for people who have just been diagnosed or who've got friends with allergies and things. So so I think you're in it, and that Smile, Emma Amascato's app is in it. So little things like that. And we used to have a category for food allergen labelling, so packaging, labelling, ingredients.
I saw that's changing your website. It's a lot more clear now. I don't know. I remember.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah, because I went on it. I obviously recently, a couple of weeks ago as well, and from what I remembered, it just seems a lot more clear now to kind of look at the packaging and be like, oh, this is free from X, Y, and Z. Okay,
that is good. That's really good to hear. It's good feedback. We don't often get consumer feedback, I think, because we're not yet. We're much more trade. Our sort of our contact base is much more manufacturer and trade based. But we're really trying to connect with consumers because if consumers don't want what we're offering, there's no point in us existing. If you know what I mean. So, so labeling is a category that we used to run in the awards, but actually we're bringing it out now, and we're going to have it as an all year round thing, whereby every quarter we have a panel of judges to come along and say this labeling is unclear, this design isn't good. So you can basically have a sort of evaluation, and then you will get a certification of some kind at the end of it. So there's lots going on, but we love feedback. We thrive off feedback because the only reason the Free From Food Awards exist is because people have food allergies.
No, I find it super interesting. I think like on your Instagram, it'd be great to do more videos of like behind the scenes of like the judging and like, because I find it so obviously, I didn't realize the businesses get all this feedback and stuff.
Right.
And it's really interesting to kind of hear that from your side of things.
We'd really love to do more. I mean, we've experimented with a couple of TikTok videos and stuff.
Any TikTok dances?
Oh God! I mean, I'm a really good dancer, so I should. But it's you have to do it well to do it well, don't you? I mean, you have to think about it.
It's so different as well. For me, I find TikTok is awareness,
right?
And you've got to post 10 times more than Instagram, like 2 a day or 1 a day. It's insane. But then you can't build a community on TikTok because the feed is literally 99% of people you don't follow.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas Instagram, people are like, oh yeah, it's for mums or whatever.
Yeah.
That's shit. Yeah, I can swear on my own podcast, but that isn't true, because Instagram is about building communities, and you can build a community on Instagram, but I don't think that's the same across TikTok.
Okay, TikTok's too sort of fleeting, is it? Too sort of.
TikTok's are great for awareness. So say if you said something right now and I thought, oh, I'm going to snip that into a 1 minute clip, it's super engaging and I think it's going to captivate the audience. That could get, say, hundreds of thousands of views, and it might bring people to the podcast, which is great, because then it drives the traffic up, and they might subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah.
But then 90% of the times you're on TikTok, it's more just like people you don't follow.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Whereas like Instagram's the opposite. It's people you do follow.
Yeah.
So you can build that community.
Yeah.
But then you might not get the same awareness what TikTok's giving us. So I might post the same clip on Instagram and it might only get 5,000 views, but then on TikTok it might get 50,000 views. Yeah. So I think you have to use them all to their own benefit. Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting. It's fascinating, but it's quite difficult. Like
it's a lot. It's also a lot of work. I mean, I made a TikTok video recently about my trip to one of the international fairs in Sweden, and it took me ages, and it wasn't massively awards focused. It was more about the trip, and I don't know. I have a newfound respect for directors and photographers, and you know, not actors, but you know, like people who actually do these things, because it takes you have to really think about it, and it doesn't just happen. And so for us to do something behind the scenes, we'd really need someone who with an eye to what the viewer would want to see. And we at the moment we don't really have the resources, and we try to do a little bit, but sometimes we made a video recently asking, you know, telling people about how great the awards are, and it was like it was I mean, it did the job, but it was utterly rubbish. But you know, and poor Nikki was terrified, and it was, you know, it's. But you know, you gotta start somewhere, right? And
not worry about it. And I think it's good nowadays because like it doesn't always have to be like polished. It doesn't have to be on a.
Well, I mean, any publicity
camera,
is good publicity, isn't it? So like I did wake up in the night saying, "Oh my God, maybe we shouldn't have posted that video." But then I thought, you know what, sod it. Actually, it's something we've done, and we can laugh about it, and it's fine. And maybe 3 people saw it and thought, "Okay, those 2 look a bit weird, but their award sounds really good, so I'm going to enter it." You know.
Yeah, it's just like taking that away as well, and it is weird talking to the camera, like like. I don't know.
It's awful.
I've done it a few years now, so like, it's not as bad as when I started. But when I look back at the first videos, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like really awkward.
Oh, it's just, it is, it's terrible. I did a little clip for the for IFE. I had to do a little clip, and I basically what I ended up doing was jumping up in front of my phone, because then I wasn't standing in front of it. I just, you know, was launching it, and I looked like a total tit. But I thought, well, at least I don't look like a.
You've literally got less than 3 seconds to get someone to like watch the whole video.
Yeah. So hopefully someone thought, what's that idiot doing? I'll watch what she's up to.
If you jump in for every now and then, it'll probably keep people more engaged. If anyone wants to kind of follow the kind of Free From Food Awards or find the website, would you like to share that on the podcast?
Oh yeah, thank you. So on Instagram we are Free From Food Awards. That's easy. Twitter we're FF Food Awards. And our website is freefromfoodawards.co.uk.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and it's been super fascinating kind of hearing about the kind of background and how it got to where